Welcome back to another edition of Badger Blitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. From the recruiting trail to inside Camp Randall Stadium to on the court at the Kohl Center, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by Rivals national recruiting analyst and my good friend, Clint Cosgrove. Clint, good to see you as always, buddy.
Always a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me on, and I'm excited to talk some Badger recruiting.
Hey, man. Well, let's get right into it. We're going to start with a tough one today for the Badgers. Khalil Tate has committed to Iowa. He was someone that was really high on Wisconsin's board. And, personally, I'm a huge fan of his game. I think he's going to be a true impact level safety at the next level. So he's going to Iowa. Iowa's absolutely killing it on the trail right now. Two-prong question for you, Clint. I'll start by asking you, how is Iowa doing so well recruiting? They just landed Caden Proctor, five-star tackle, top, I think it's 12th right now in the Rivals 100. So obviously huge talent level there. They've, been doing a lot better in the rankings. How is Iowa recruiting so well right now? And then second part of that question, who are some guys that Wisconsin could try and target after missing out on their top target at safety and Tate?
Yeah, Iowa is. I mean, they're doing a great job. Now, the big thing with Iowa right now is they have had an unprecedented level of talent within the state the past 2 years. So Xavier Nwapa, who signed with Iowa in the 2022 class, played at the same high school as Caden Proctor. So two 5-stars on the same team in Iowa, it just doesn't often happen. Xavier was the highest player who signed with Iowa that will end up playing for him ever. And Caden, his old teammate, ends up being the new highest player that has ever signed with Iowa.
They were both higher than Epinesa?
Both higher than
Wow,
Epinesa.
I thought Epinesa was, well, I mean, he was way up there too. So I mean, all of them.
Yeah,
huge.
He was a 5-star. I mean, he was a top kid, and that was a big get for them. The Epinesa thing was his dad played at Iowa, and there was that connection.
Mm-hmm,
so
sure.
I think that's part one of it. The talent in state has been good. It has gotten better. I think that's part of the population growing in Iowa. You've got some good football coaches there, and you've got tough, hard-nosed kids who aren't afraid to work. And in the new recruiting world, you don't always find that. So that's the first part of it. Second part is, Seth Wallace, he's done a fantastic job in Illinois recruiting. He connects with the kids. He connects with the coaches. He's created a little bit of a pipeline, so that has helped them. And, when kids see 5-star players going to Iowa, that attracts other kids who want to be 5-star level players. And Iowa's putting out players in the NFL, just like Wisconsin does. It's funny, when I talk with kids and when I talked with Khalil while we were filming his decision, I really thought he was going to go to Wisconsin. And I was wrong. And he said they were neck and neck, very similar programs. But he just, for one reason or another, I think it was, part of it was Coach Seth Wallace, his connection with Coach Ferentz. And, he just felt that Iowa was close to home. And then another area defensive back recruit who he had played with, I believe, on Midwest Boom with John Nestor was going there. And so it was just a fit for him. But, Iowa's been a developmental program in the past, but they're starting to get some pretty highly ranked recruits. So
and I would say over the past decade, their defensive back play has been consistently very strong. You think about going back all the way to guys like Micah Hyde, and continuing through. They've had some. What was it, King? I forget his first name off the top of my head, but
was it Desmond?
I think Desmond King. They've had a lot of excellent players in the defensive backfield. So it's not like a huge shock, I guess. But, for Wisconsin fans, they're obviously going to be disappointed because, like we said, Tate's a playmaker, man. Like Tate is a playmaker. Yeah. And, I don't obviously do the evaluating things. For me, he would be I would have him as comfortably a 5.8. Grading him out.
Yeah.
So.
He might end up in that range.
Yeah.
He's that type of player. He's a great kid. Like I said, he felt very comfortable in Wisconsin. When he went on his visit there, he wanted to commit afterwards. And Same thing. He's like when he got out of his Iowa visit. I wanted to commit there afterwards, but his mom said, "Let's take the emotion out of this. Let's sit down and let's decide what is the best for you and your future." And just he said they were neck and neck. He loved Coach Leonard. He loved Alva Hansborough at Wisconsin. And it's funny because I'm hearing this from a lot of kids. They compared the programs. They're like they're almost identical programs, and it's a hard loss, but there are other kids out there.
Yeah, so who else is out there right now? The one guy that I really had my eye on personally from the state of Illinois is Jair Hill. He has a Wisconsin offer. I know he's been to Illinois a bunch of times as well for visits from Kankakee, right in your neck of the woods. I'm pretty sure. I don't know my Illinois geography super well.
South.
Yeah, that's close enough. Close enough. I mean,
Yeah.
in as far as driving Midwest distance is concerned, that's basically next door. So tell me about him and some other guys in the Midwest that you are intrigued by at the safety position.
Yeah, I mean, Jair would be great because he could play corner, but he's got that 6'2" frame, and he can absolutely run. Like you said, he's been at Illinois a lot. I know Michigan's up there with him as well. I wouldn't put Wisconsin out of the race for it, but he'd be a heck of a player. I see him really being probably more of a corner, which most people probably see him as a safety or an athlete. But the kid can cover and he can run. So, and every college coach, they're obsessed with tall DBs. So they love the tall corners. As far as guys that are out there, Marvin Burks, I don't know if Wisconsin's a legit contender for him. I haven't talked to him in a while. He'd be a big one. There's Kiwan Davis, who's actually committed to Western Michigan right now. And, I saw him over the weekend, and he's a heck of a player. I saw him this past weekend, not this weekend, at the Pylon National 7-on-7. And this is a long dude who can run, cover. Like I said, committed to Western Michigan, but I think he could be a great fit. He would be a great target. There's a few other guys, Michael Yarbrough out of Belleville High School in Michigan, who could be a good safety target. And, you got Justin Taylor in the boat right now as well. So there's still kids out there. Like I say, every year there's going to be a kid who pops up during season that we don't even know about right now. And so obviously a position of need, you take a lot of those guys in every single class. You have to. There's also the transfer portal. But, those names that I threw out would be the guys that I would be, at least from the Midwest, targeting right now.
So you mentioned guys really starting to pop here in this summer. And I think actually for this 2023 class, the summer is going to be huge because we've talked on previous shows about how COVID really affected the recruiting cycle especially for these 2023 kids, right? It impacted a ton of their tape. And so who are, I'm bringing you this one out of left field. Who are just a couple kids that you've seen in the events you've gone to this summer that have jumped off the page and surprised you?
Man, it's different now in the media role because I look at it differently. I'm not out there trying to identify players. I'm trying to cover players and evaluate players that are newsworthy and are being recruited by the teams. We've talked about Kiwan Davis before. He is definitely one that has popped out. Justin Scott, he's just so highly rated. So it's not like he's off the radar or anything like that. Who else have I seen? You know what? The kid from Naperville North, Williams. What is his first name? Do you remember? I feel bad for not knowing it because I've known him for a while. He is
Luke Williams?
Yes, Luke Williams. Because he had a brother as well who signed with Northern Illinois this year, Zeke. Yeah. And so, so he would be one. There's a freshman out of what high school is he at? But he picked up Iowa. He picked up. I think he's got 2 or 3 Power 5 offers as a freshman. I've written about him before. I can't believe I don't have the name off the top of my head. But he's a big time player. The camp season has been so long. I've seen so many kids. There's so many guys who are underrated there are so many guys who may be overrated as well. I like the camps because it's an opportunity to evaluate these guys in person, and if nothing else, get an athletic evaluation, see how they compete and everything like that. But at the same time, the camp can't be the overall evaluation. I look at it like 7-on-7. The kids who ball out at 7-on-7, they're not always the greatest players at the next level, but it's a great athletic evaluation. It's a great competitor evaluation. So there's been a number of kids. I'm sorry that I don't have a bunch of names in front of me. I wish I did. But when we get on next time, I will come up with
Was it
my top.
Was it Talon Taylor you were thinking of earlier?
It Talent. Yep.
Talon, sorry,
Yep.
yeah, Talon Taylor.
Yep.
Talon
I
Taylor
could be
from,
saying that wrong too.
yeah, from Geneva, Illinois.
Yeah. Baller. That kid can flat out play. There's another kid from Glenbard West as well, Ellians, who's actually visiting Minnesota soon. I think he's going to go up to Wisconsin at some point. He's another kid that has been impressive when I've seen him at camps. That doesn't have a lot of clout behind his name. And a number of kids in Ohio as well. One, Keeney Parks, who just actually committed to Wyoming.
Yeah.
If I'm Wisconsin, I still try to get in on him because
Yeah.
to me, that kid can play
Yeah,
ball.
well, and he has the athleticism. I think
He's a 24-foot long jumper.
you know how I feel about long jumpers, but
no doubt.
jumpers in general. So one of the big points of consternation for Wisconsin fans, and I'm not going to ask you to do like a 30-minute deep dive onto this, is the setup of the recruiting department. Basically, ever since Saeed Khalif left Wisconsin for Michigan State, right at the beginning of June 2021, Wisconsin did not have an official recruiting department staff whatsoever until February after signing day when they transitioned Mickey Turner. They started to fill out a little bit of the recruiting department, but let's face it, it's not what a modern Power 5 recruiting department looks like at most schools, especially your upper level schools. What would a legitimate, or I should say in general, what does a recruiting department look like? What is I know every school is going to be different, but in general, what does a recruiting department breakdown look like? What types of people are they employing and what jobs do they do?
Yeah, so there's so many variations of this. It's not like the NFL where they have kind of a set, like the GM, and then you've got your
Director of player
your guys who oversee.
personnel, things like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. So, but it's going that direction. So we're seeing a little bit of that. For example, just from working in the scouting, and let's use LSU for example. And this is 2019 when they're going to the national championship. I go down there and there is a full out, like, big office with 10 desks, 10 screens, and there is a group of student workers that are in there that want to get into the profession. There is a group of assistant player personnel people who are probably on the lower end of the pay scale spectrum. But they've graduated from college. Maybe they've been a football coach somewhere else. And then you've got your assistant director of personnel. And then you have your player personnel director. And now some of these schools like Cincinnati, you see what they're doing. They've got Maximus Steneker he's like the, I don't know his exact title, but it's all about the logistics of it. He's the one who really plans everything out. And so you get tons of different variations, but some of these big schools, they've got 10 to 15 to sometimes 20 people that only work on recruiting, whether it be doing the graphics, whether it be watching the film, whether it be putting in the notes, whether it be going through the services that they buy. So if a new guy gets added to, for instance, when I worked at National Preps, if a new guy gets added in there that has a Power 5 grade, they're going to be the first line of defense. They're going to watch that kid's film, maybe get a transcript on them. And then they're going to, if they feel they fit the bill, they're going to pass it on to the next level. So that is at least at your big schools, that is the setup that they have. There's a lot of manpower. There's student workers. There's interns. There are full-time guys. And then there are guys who run it all and oversee it all. There's so many interesting titles that you get now. You get GMs in college. You get, a little bit of everything. And so Whereas in the past, it was the DFO, director of football operations, and then you had your recruiting coordinator, and then the staff did the rest of the
And then the
stuff.
staff
But
did the
in
rest of the
today's,
stuff, right? And now there's so much support staff to do, especially the triage, right? Of all going through film and things like that, at least at the first level of just trying to figure out, okay, well, Bobby April can't look at every single outside linebacker in the entire country. We're gonna, sift through and say, here's maybe 80 guys to look at instead of 800 guys or whatever like that. But
yep,
it was amazing to me to see, like, Georgia has a staff, I think, of like 27 to 30 people now
yeah,
just for recruiting. Like, they're
yep,
and you can understand why Wisconsin fans would get frustrated when they see they have a department of 4
yeah, and
and zero department for an entire cycle. And that now it's starting, chickens are coming home to roost because of that.
yeah, and I think I guess, as if I'm a Wisconsin fan, the thing I'm frustrated about is there's a number of different ways that you can, if there is a lack of resources,
Hmm.
this is a profession that so many people want to get into. There's so many people who do the stuff for free. Like, you could have people that are interns, maybe you pay them with food, or they get minimum wage, whatever it is, and you could have people doing that. So there's no excuse not to have a
Yeah,
big recruiting department at this stage. So Wisconsin still does a good job. They still have their program. They still win games, and so they have a process and a way of doing things. But in my opinion, not to put anybody down or anything down, they obviously pride themselves on being a developmental program and being able to coach ball, which we all know they can do. But there's no excuse for not having a big recruiting department
I
this
mean,
day and
so much
age.
so that over the last 3 years, Wisconsin, I saw this on Twitter, so take it with a grain of salt, obviously, but Wisconsin has spent the least amount of money among every Power Five team in recruiting since 2019.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin was a client of mine up until, I think, 2019. I worked pretty close with them prior to that. So, yeah, I don't know, what direction they're going in. I know a good friend of mine, Alba Hansborough, is part of that recruiting department,
Yeah,
and I hear his name from kids a lot. Khalil, when I was talking about his decision, like, he named Alba as being one of the things that made it hard for him to make that decision to Iowa. So I know there's good guys working in the recruiting department, but I also know that I talk to coaches across the entire nation, and just even from talking to MAC coaches, there's a way to put the processes and people in place to have the means to have a complete recruiting department that you need this day and age.
for sure, for sure. All right, Clint. Well, listen, we appreciate your time as always, your insights as always. Make sure to check out Clint on all the social medias at rivals_Clint. You can check me out on Twitter at _Perko_. Make sure to like, subscribe to the YouTube page here, Badger Blitz TV. And until next time, we will see you in the den.